Yo! So, when recreating the face to face quality of sound, the first step for most video creators is you need to, you have to get that sound right. And you want to avoid these three common mistakes when buying your next microphone for phenomenal audio presence. Now, when I see a lot of mic videos online, they typically compare two mics by recording some samples in each different environments, and then they ask you, the listener, to decide which mic is better. And I feel like that's kind of a fool's errand because we need objective measures for microphones in order to know what will be better for our situation. Hey, I'm Dr. Ed, and I'm just a geek kid who was shown mercy by his grade 7 French teacher. And I grew up in the northeast hood of Calgary, next to Pine Ridge. And you don't have to be a Calgarian to know why this community was nicknamed Crime Ridge. It was creativity that got me out of my slump and led me to my doctorate in computer science and over 15 years in educational technology. I'm here to give back as a speaker and a diverse decision making coach to innovative school districts and cutting edge organizations. Now, you see, I was first exposed to social AI when a video of my user experience research became one of the first viral videos on YouTube. This is in 2005 when YouTube first started. Since then, I've learned how AI is this new gatekeeper of attention. And one of the ways that it checks to see the quality of your video is by looking at simple things like the average volume. So, videos that are louder tend to be more interesting to viewers. And so, to give you a little bit of sense of where I'm coming from, I started vlogging, with just my iPhone 6S when I started traveling for work. Before I had anything, I just wanted to document the places that I was going to. And the first thing that I realized was that it was really hard to hear myself in the videos because I was in environments like airports that had so many other people talking. It was really noisy, and the camera, I had to put the phone really far away from my face in order to see me. And so, yeah, man, this is a really painful experience for me, and it took me a few years to realize that our ears are incredible at identifying sounds from really far away. And most of the work of microphones is just to compensate for the limitations of the technology, to get closer to what we hear in real life if we're face to face. If the sound is softer, the person feels really far away. And if the sound is louder, the person sounds a lot closer to you. And so, yes, it's presence for the AI, but it's also presence for us as well. We feel like you're more attentive. And the way I describe this is that there's always a conversation that's going on in people's heads, right? Is your volume loud enough to overcome that voice that people have in their heads? If it isn't, then you've got a problem, right? They're spending their time thinking. They're distracted. They're looking at the things around them. This is not helping you. And so it took me several years to research and experiment until I was able to find a solution that was right for the environments that I was in, which was just traveling to conferences. And I want to share with you three mistakes that I made that you should avoid when buying your next bike. And I hope that this is helpful for you. Anytime, if you want, we're live, so you can feel free to interrupt me, answer any questions that you might have. You can just put them into the chat. And if you are enjoying what we're showing today, just write a comment. Just say "Hey, hi, I enjoyed it." So I look forward to sharing some more of this stuff with you. All right. So the first one that I want to talk about is the important element of distance. And when we talk about distance, this is the main game when it comes to like when it comes to audio quality. This is the name of the game, and I think really the concept that is most most mics are only useful if your face is pretty much at the end of that laptop, or at the end, like within, I don't know, like a like a hang loose away from the microphone. And the reason for this is because of something known as inverse square law. So basically, what happens is, as you, like, say, here's your mic. If this is your mic, then as you are further away, right? So with the square of the distance, your sound decreases. And so you see a dramatic drop off as you get further and further away. And if you are, let's say, 2 feet, 3 feet away, most mics hear very little. Like you're mostly hearing just noise. And so people will wonder, well, why don't I hear any bass sound, or why don't I hear any, I'm missing some of that high end in my voice. It's because you are too far away generally from the mic. If you're really close, you find like even the worst mic out there works like phenomenally. And it's really this inverse square law, that it's like 1 over the sound is going to be directly dependent on the distance that you are from the microphone. And so really, but this is a problem, because if you're recording a video, like I said before, like you don't want it to be like right up to your face, which is where it records ideally. Like these phones are designed to be like right up to your face. And so when you're recording from far away, it's not going to pick up as well. And so you've got to consider the distance of any type of solution that you're using. So for example, if you're going to use like a wired lapel mic, for example, then you've got to make sure that you've got like a cable that's long enough that can give you that distance. And you think like, oh, maybe I just need a few feet. No, you actually may need like, 12 feet or, 15 feet. Like you can always make cables shorter by wrapping them and tying them, but you can't make them longer. So that's something to consider. It's like sometimes people want to be able to see the whole, like their arms, body, everything. Then you're going to need more distance. So make sure that you get a cable that is long enough. And of course, like, why do we want it to be so close? Why do we want it to be so loud? Well, the reality is there's noise all around us, right? There's fans that are running right now, there's refrigerators, wind from outside. And our ears are really incredible at compensating and making us focus on only the things that are really important, like the voices of other people. But microphones aren't like that. Microphones pick up everything, and it amplifies it. So really, you need to make sure that like you adjust for the different types of environments. And there's different ways that you can adjust for the environments. So for example, one that I've used a lot is this one. So this is a Rode Video Micro, but if you were to like go and buy one of these today, I wouldn't recommend a Video Micro. Like the better ones, like Video Mic Go. Number 2 doesn't require a battery, and it just plugs in. So this one has a dead cat. And so what that is just a windscreen. So this is the actual microphone itself. And then it has like a windscreen, and you just attach it on here. And pretty much it cuts out most of the wind. Otherwise, all you'd hear is just like blowing into the microphone. It would just be like, you wouldn't hear much. It would just be noise if it was windy outside. So this is something that's good, but it's a bit bigger, right? Like it takes a little bit more space. And so if you're running this with your phone, it's going to be a bit more of a challenge. And so what can we do if that's the case? So if that's the case, you can also consider different things like, what I prefer often is like using some kind of like wireless microphone, for example. So in this example, it has like a small dead cat, and it has like a small wireless microphone. So I'm using the example, this one's like a Lark 150. It's just a small wireless mic. You can just attach it onto like your shirt. And then if you need some wind protection from it, you can just attach on the front of the microphone, just like that. And that's it. Right? And so now I have something that I can go outside with, and it's close. Like now I'm only like this distance away from my mouth. And so I've solved the distance issue wirelessly, and they're getting really good. Like these different types of technology solutions I've found, I'm starting to get more and more impressed with what they have, because these wireless lavaliers, like some of them, if you use the Rode ones, for example, they'll actually record onto a separate track. And for those people who do a lot of interviews, like what if the wireless is not working? Like you want to have a backup. And so that will like record actual like the actual audio directly on those microphones. And I find that that's like it's a good assurance to have. You just don't want to have any issues, and people like people's time is precious. So you don't want to have to go back and go, "Oh, can you do the interview again?" Sometimes you can't, right? And so I've had several times like don't make my mistake. The I've had several times where I've made that mistake where it wasn't the right like I didn't have a backup. There was some audio problems and they couldn't use the interview. And so I have to apologize profusely to those people that I had done the interviews with, but I think that that's something that I've learned. It's another mistake. So distance, make sure that you're compensating for those types of distance. So many times I've done interviews and I can't use them simply because you're not close enough to the microphones. Now, if you're using like a bigger microphone, like a large condenser, sometimes people will have a little cover, and what that will do is it's kind of a pop filter for like certain sounds, which we call plosives, like p, t, that create a lot of wind. And so if you put a little bit of a cover on top of them, it can remove a lot of those extra sounds so that you don't have like it blowing out the mic each time. So that's another way. Um, Now, the next I want to talk to you about is so distance. Distance was number one. Number one was distance. And maybe I should change the color because that's kind of hard to read. Yellow? Maybe yellow is easier to read. Let's try that. Number two is you need to look at the pattern, or we call it, I'm going to call it type. Um, because there are many different types of microphone, and knowing which type of microphone is very important. A lot of people will just go and buy whatever mic that they see, but they all have different pickup patterns, and those pickup patterns are very important. So, for example, the main ones that I would focus on if I were video recording would be the shotgun. They call them shotgun type. And what that is a polar pattern that captures mostly in the front. So let's say your mic is here. It's mostly capturing just right what's in front of you. And that's the ideal pattern if you're speaking, right? Like you want to capture that one person. But sometimes what you want is not that. You actually want an omnidirectional pattern. And so it will just capture everything close to you. But then if it's a little bit further away, then you don't want it to capture that sound. And so a lapel mic, so something that is, for example, like say this wireless mic that I'm clipping on, it captures omnidirectional. So anything that is around my mouth, right? And that's what we want. We don't want to capture things that are like very far away. We just want to capture things that are close to me. So that's one way of using that. Morning, I have the Rode and the Go 2, and you mean the wireless Go 2, and the lavalier. Oh, very cool. Well, that one's a good one. Like if you have the wireless Go 2, um, I don't know if you have this, but there's another cable that I'll talk about in a bit as well, because that can open up some more possibilities for it as well. So that's one, like these are the pickup patterns that you typically see. And usually when I'm talking about a microphone array, like those inside your laptop, or sometimes you can buy microphone arrays. They're usually like two that have omnidirectional patterns, so they still only work fairly close. So don't expect it to like suddenly become a shotgun mic. That's not how these things work. But it will give you slightly better sound isolation at distance compared to if you just had one omnidirectional mic. So that's something that I've noticed as well. Now, when it comes to the different types of like wireless mics, right? So if you're talking about like, so we can talk about the polar patterns, but one thing that we can also talk about is the type of connection that you're using. So if you're using a wired connection, usually it is in the form of a 3.5 millimeter, um, is the most common type of jack. So it's just like the standard headphone jack. The example I would have is in this microphone. So maybe I'll just open it up to show you. So in the J mic, which I love, like I prefer this mic because this mic is incredible because first of all, it gets, when I put this on, you can see it's like this distance away from my mouth, right? So you're going to get incredible signal compared to the noise. And the connector on the other side is just one of these, right? It's just like a standard 3.5 millimeter TRS jack. And if I were to plug this in, even some of the wireless mics that exist today, you can just plug them directly in. And now I've just taken that mic from maybe giving me like a 20, 30 like decibel boost to easily 40, right? Because you're so much closer. And now if I'm in a conference or there's a lot of noise, you're going to be able to hear me clearly compared to everyone else. So these are very powerful. But if you have one of these connectors, just make sure you have the right kind of connection. Now, when it comes to wireless, there are many different types. Like there are some that run off RF, and more recently, what I've noticed is the connection, or there's some that run off Bluetooth. Um, and everything that I've looked at and every mic that I've tried with Bluetooth has been absolutely terrible. I'll be honest with you. Don't get a Bluetooth mic. Like you will be wasting your money, honestly. Um, the ones that I've seen that have worked well generally run at the 2.4 gigahertz, or pretty much the Wi-Fi signal level. And I found that with those ones, you just need to consider like, well, great. So I've got a really great wireless connection. How the heck am I going to get this into something like a phone? How am I going to get this into my laptop? And so that means that you're going to need a receiver. And so in this case, with the Lark, I have a general receiver. What I like about this one is that it actually has like the different phone mode. Okay, cool. Is mine connected? Yes. Okay, here. Oh, there we go. It turned off by itself because it didn't see it was connected to the receiver. Very smart. Okay, so with this one, essentially, because you have the headphone jack, you just plug it in, and that can go directly into the phone. And so I have something that converts headphone to Lightning. That's how I connect this. And so it's a pretty secure connection. It works very well from my experience. I haven't run into any issues with this type of connection. What I like about this particular one as well is that if I want, I can adjust the volume on the microphone just dynamically. It has like two big knobs, one on this side and one on this side. Just something that makes it a little bit easier to work with. And so the other thing to consider, so I hope that makes sense. So 3.5 millimeter, or you have the wireless. And if you're using wireless, make sure you're running at like the high frequency range. You don't want to be using an RF. So RF, no, do not use an RF. Do not use Bluetooth. Bluetooth is going to be like a problem as well. So don't use Bluetooth. Don't use RF. They run into all sorts of like weird connection and static problems. So I wouldn't recommend those, especially today. You have so many different options. Why bother? So the next is to also consider your signal, like especially when it comes to the different types of signals that you can use, the signal sources, I often like to think of it as, are you using an active microphone or using a passive, right? So what's the difference between active versus passive? Really, what we're talking about is the pickup, right? Is it completely running off of no power, like it doesn't have any active power, or is it an active microphone? So there are two microphones that I put on. So one called the Rode VideoMic Go 2. The Go 2 is a wonderful passive mic. And so what it has is it's a shotgun mic. It doesn't require a battery. It doesn't need to be charged. You just like plug the thing into your phone. Everything, it just works and it gives you the best signal that it can. However, if you decided, hey, I want to be able to listen to things that are a little bit further away, I want to have slightly better signal to noise ratio, then it would be really good to consider an active microphone. So, for example, the Rode VideoMic NTG is a active microphone. It actually has a lithium ion battery inside the mic. And with the lithium ion battery, you're going to be able to pick up things from farther away. You're going to be able to capture things that require more energy to capture, such as the high frequency sounds. The low frequency is also very difficult to capture. So that's where you find the most difference is it's not so much that it gives you a ton more distance, but I would say it captures the sound with more fidelity. And that's something I also noticed with this microphone that I'm using. I use like a big, large diaphragm microphone, that an AKG C414. And because it's an active microphone, you're going to get way, way better signal to noise. And that is, I hope that makes sense. So you have both. So you've got the Go 2 and you have the lavalier. Oh, that is so cool. The Rode also came up with a new lavalier. And that's something that I can talk about a little bit later, but essentially it's a thinner profile version. They call it lavalier 2. So it's something to consider as well. Now, if you're getting something like a headset microphone though, I highly recommend don't go for the ones where they just cover over one ear. Because what happens is if you have one that just covers over one ear, it tends to want to move away from you or slip off. There's all sorts of problems with it. Whereas if you get one that has a hook that goes all the way around both ears, it's going to keep the microphone in place. And so I'll often go to conferences and they'll have lapel microphones. And I will ask them, I will bring this microphone with me to conferences and I'll ask if I can use this microphone. And those people who are presenting at conferences using the regular microphones are running into all sorts of problems. Whereas if I have this microphone nearby, I don't have any problems. I know that this thing's going to stay close to my face. I know it's going to be the right distance. And I know it's going to have a wonderful, an incredible pickup. And so I think I want to talk about the last part, which I think a lot of people, I think you may know some of this stuff intuitively. It wasn't intuitive for me. And that's why I wanted to share the experiences that I learned the hard way. And one of the most important ones that I learned was about signal. But before I get into signal to noise ratio, I want to stop and pause. Want to see, do you guys have any questions, anything that I can answer? Because if you do, I'm happy to answer them. And you can interrupt me anytime. But that is a little bit about when you're looking at look at the type of connection, but also look at is the microphone active or passive? Active is going to be a better pickup, but it's going to be a pain in the butt because you have to charge it. Now, the nice thing I like about Rode NTG is they claim they can do 30 hours of recording. That's a lot. So you could turn that thing on all day and not run into any problems. So, it might be worth it, but it's big, right? And I also have other active microphones Let's see if I can pull one up here. Man, I have so many of these different mics. So this is the Rode Video Mic Pro. And it has an active battery at the back. So in order to turn it on, you have to like flip a switch, and then it turns on, and then it has some adjustments where you can make it louder, you can adjust the frequency, and you can also do things like low cut. So if you don't want any bass, I'm just recording voice, then you can just cut out all the unnecessary bass. And then it runs off a 9-volt battery. And so every so often with this one, I have to change out the battery. And so the nice thing about the Rode Video Mic NTG is that you don't need to, but it's more expensive, right? Like you do pay more for those types of mics, but they give you more options. And what I like is that when you connect these ones, I was talking a little bit about the what is the difference, between active versus passive. And one of the things that I've really noticed with microphones in general is that they, like, if you look at the full frequency spectrum like this, they capture sounds like this. So, like within the vocal range, they capture more signal. But if it's like the higher frequency, generally you won't capture much. And if it's the lower frequency, generally you won't capture much. So there's richness in your voice across all frequencies, but often the low end is gone, the high end is gone. And so engineers have noticed these types of problems. And so one thing that they've done is they've introduced things that will add those frequencies back in. So how do they do this? Well, there's a company, Aphex, which was eventually acquired by Rode, APHEX, where they noticed that like a lot of radio broadcasts, and they just had really tinny sound. It was hard to hear. And a lot of our quality of sound comes from the depth of that bass sound and some of the resonance in the high frequencies. And I'm talking about like low sounds, I'm talking about like 200 hertz all the way. And then the high frequencies, probably 2000 to 3000 hertz. So 2 to 3000 hertz. And so they created these plugins that can be used in software. So one is called, they call it Big Bottom. So Big Bottom. And then they have an aural exciter. They call it Exciter. So they have two different solutions. One gives the high end and one gives the low end. And I don't normally share like the setup that I have for my audio, but that's exactly what I use for my live streams, like that you're hearing right now. So let me show you what I mean. So essentially, what you're seeing from my mics. Let's see if I can switch this. I may have to erase everything. Hold on a sec. I'll erase all this stuff. Hey, why am I still here? Okay, there. So this is the Aphex Aural Exciter. And so what this is doing is it is adding in the high end, and I'm gonna turn it off. And so you can hear what it is without the high end. I'll turn it back on. I hope you can hear the difference between the two. And then another thing that I'll show you is the Big Bottom. So this is my voice with the Big Bottom on. And if I turn it off, this is what it sounds like. And then if I turn it back on, this is what it sounds like. So I hope you're noticing like there's a difference between the two. That's really what I'm saying. Like, so with this software, like for example, if you get the Rode Mic NTG, it will add in, like it has software that you can connect to your computer that will add the Big Bottom, and it will add the Aural Exciter in order to give it a slightly more full sound, even though the microphone isn't actually capturing it. It's kind of like cheating. Yeah, that's what we do. We cheat. We find ways to cheat and bring that in. So there's all sorts of tricks. Like this is like years of different things, and there's just some of them. Like I also use for me, I really like the RX8 like voice denoiser, but I do a lot of like different types of tricks in order to like get better signal to noise ratio. And that is the next one. So I think that this is the part that is most ignored, and that is number 3. So signal to noise. So when you look at any microphone, really the base quality, like how good your microphone is and this is what you're paying for. So when you go from like a low end microphone to a high end microphone, what is all this money going towards? It is going towards one thing. It is going towards a way better signal to noise ratio. And often that's measured in decibels, right? So they're measuring how much, if I don't say anything, what is the current signal in decibels? And then if I say something, then what is that signal? And what's the difference between the two? Because the bigger that there is that difference, the less you're going to hear noise from outside, and the more clearly you're going to be able to hear that person's voice, even when there's other noise. Like I mentioned, there's like all sorts of noise. There's fans, there's other people. There's always going to be noise. Noise is just part of the world that we live in. And so, how much of that noise is going to be picked up by your mic compared to the signal that you're getting? And this is where I found that I'm starting to see like huge differences between different mics. Like the generally, it is, and I want to put this objectively. Like you go to their website, right? You go to most like video or like yeah any type of website out there. Oops. And what you notice is that like they'll say like signal to noise ratio is like 60 decibels, incredible, it's so great. But those I feel are all in like anechoic chambers, like ideal environments that have zero noise. And I worry that that's not actually real. So what I did is I actually did a bunch of experiments manually, just testing microphone over like many different types of conditions. And I put it into like restaurants and I tested it. And I asked like, okay, is this actually producing the signal that I expect? What is the difference? And so I have some general rule of thumbs that should apply to any type of mic that you purchase. Uh, well, it should give you a rule of thumb, but you're gonna ultimately have to test it yourself. And so, method of testing. The method of testing that I used was I have to use a program that has the number. So I need to be able to measure the decibels of like just noise, and then I need to be able to measure the decibels with me talking, and it has to give me the actual number. So I used Filmic Pro. Filmic Pro is just like a recording program, and it will just tell me like what that number is if you put it into the landscape mode. And so that's how I did this test. And I did the test in different conditions. Some I did at home, where it was fairly quiet, but I have things like a fridge running and fans and stuff. And then I did some at like a busy restaurant to see, well, what's the difference? Like, does it make any difference? And so I'm happy to share the results with you, and it might give you some sense if you're ever considering to buy a mic now or in the future. Um, so here's generally what I found, and this confirms like even it's interesting. Like if you look at the world of cameras on phones, they are incredible. Like now they record cinematic HDR video, 4K, 60 frames per second. Their color reproduction, like they have all this computational photography, make it look as good as some digital SLRs, but their microphones are trash, like absolute garbage. Still today, I'm talking like iPhone 13 Pro. I don't care which one you have. They are all junk. So if I were just to look at iPhone mic, right? And if you were just to take the straight iPhone microphone, what is the difference between signal and noise on your iPhone? 10. The answer is about 10 decibels. So expect that you're going to get about 10 decibels of noise. And I've measured this in several different locations. So the only difference between your speaking and noise is about 10 decibels, which is tiny, right? Like it's almost nothing. Like why bother? Like, and this is why like things with your phone, like unless it's really quiet outside, it's very hard to hear. It's because you don't have any signal, right? Like your signal to noise is almost nothing. This is why we run into so many difficulties even today. Like, and it's funny. Um, iPhone like 13 Pro, I don't know if people know, but removed the noise isolation feature that was present in iPhone 12 and earlier. And so to an extent, the microphones on like for at least isolating voice, isolating the human voice has gotten worse in recent versions of the phone. It has not gotten better. They've taken stuff away. I don't think enough people are complaining about it yet because they haven't done anything. It's been months. And so just something to keep in mind, phone microphones suck. They generally like are not going to get you a good signal. Now, what if I use something like, so this is the Lark 150, and I really like Lark 150 because it has like these, like it basically it's similar in design to the DJI mic. I think it's a little bit simpler. All you do is like you unplug it, it's already synced, ready to go. You just like clip it on and you're good to go. And the case itself has like batteries in it, so it's charging it. So you just like put it back in, you're good to go for like another, I think it's 5 hours, 5, 6 hours with this. So like it lasts quite a long time, and that's all you got to do. So with one of these wireless packs, what kind of signal to noise should I expect? I just clip it on. So what should my signal to noise be? Well, if you're using something, I'll give you the example of like the Lark 150. You're going to be looking at something closer to 20 decibels, which is okay. It's double, double the number of like signal to noise that we had before. And for a lot of environments, like if I'm in a conference or something, that's probably sufficient for the amount of effort that I have to put in, which hopefully isn't a lot, in order to get it going. And so that's an improvement, right? So we're able to get double. But another question would be, okay, so now I take this same Lark, this wireless thing, and I'm gonna plug it in to that cable that I had. Where did it go? I put it here. So I've got this cable, and then I just plug it into my mic, just like that. So now, what is my signal to noise gonna be? Well, it's gonna go up. It's gonna go up again. So if I use the headset, and I'm using the Mic J headset, you're gonna get closer to 30 decibels. All right. So now I am 3 times the amount of signal compared to just using my iPhone, right? So now I pretty much don't have any problems. If people like we're in a busy conference area, or I'm outside and there's lots of noise, or I'm in an airport or something, I have this and like clearly, but it's obvious, right? Like you can see it. I mean, so is this. I mean, you can still see the lights and you can still see the little box, but it's much more inconspicuous. I like how small it is. I wish it had recording capability, but that's one of the limitations. If you want recording capability, you should go with the Rode mic, the Wireless Go 2, because it has that recording capability. And so this is really powerful, especially if you're on the go, right? iPhone, sometimes we don't have that option. And some of these ones, if you purchase, like for example, the Rode Wireless Go, it comes with a little tripod, and it has a like cell phone holder, and then on top of it, then you can put the wireless receiver. It's well designed to put everything together, so you can just handhold stuff. So that's a really powerful tool. Now, there's also, so if you are not talking Oh, you might be wondering, well, okay, so what about others, right? Like, what about if I don't use those? What if I just use, like, I'm on the go, but I'm going to use something like the Video Micro, right? So if you're using the Rode Video Micro, you're looking at. I did some tests with this one. The Video Micro is closer to 20 decibels. So it's about the same as putting it here, but what's nice is that with the wireless one, you could be further away from your microphone. But Video Micro, you have to be fairly close, and I was using it at, like, vlogging distance, like, so about like my arm's length away. So that's pretty close, right? So that's what you're looking at for Video Micro. Um, and then what happens if you are using the iPhone mic? Some of you guys have this headset, right? So maybe you've tried, like, the earbuds, the AirPods. It has a little microphone, like, right here, and that's fairly close to your mouth, so it should have some pretty good signal, right? Well, if you use I think they call them earpods. Uh, what I've found with those ones is, yeah, it's about 20 decibels as well. It's the same, right? So, yep, you could plug this in. There's something weird with Filmic Pro where it will, like, play back like an echo of your audio, which in my opinion, makes it unusable. And I've also noticed that if you use earpods or if you use AirPods, it's all the same. It doesn't matter. It's still 20 decibels. So Video Micro, earpods, AirPods, all about 20 decibels. If you want to get higher than that, sorry, you're going to have to use something like a headset mic, or you're going to have to use something closer to your mouth. But pretty much anything like proximity, you can get double what you can get from the iPhone by default. So that's what you're paying for. So you buy all of these different, like, tools. You're pretty much getting doubling of your sound. And if you buy something like a headset and you connect to it, you can get, like, tripling of the sound. So that's the only thing that I've really noticed that really makes a difference, at least on the mobile side. And that's the exact reason why I bring in the headset every time. I'm going to come in louder than anyone else who's presenting. I'm going to be more clear, like, my voice is going to be more clear. This is going to make a huge difference. And so the headset, like, of all the things that you can buy, I find that this is a worthwhile investment because it is going to bring, like, your sound and everything a lot closer. But of course, it's obvious. Like, it's clear that you're wearing it. But, like, for me, as a speaker, it's good, right? You want to be seen wearing a really great headset microphone, and people want to know that, hey, you're committed to giving them the most clear audio so that you can get your message across. I think that's important. Now, there is ways to get higher than this. And you may want to know, like, how can I do that? So the way that I've found is basically to go active. So pretty much all the methods that I have described, save from the wireless microphone that I just demonstrated, is a passive solution, right? So this headset microphone is passive, right? It's just like a passive option for connecting, and it's not necessarily the best when it comes to pickup of the low frequencies and the high frequencies. And so if you went active let's say you went to a large diaphragm active microphone, well, what kind of signal are you able to get? I've done some measurements here with my own microphone, and I found that you could pretty easily get. So let's call it large diaphragm. No, I'm gonna just call it what it is: AKG C414, which is a large diaphragm microphone. Then I can get about 40 to 50 decibels. But ultimately, your mileage is gonna vary depending on how much, like, noise you have in your room. But I find for my room, which I think is pretty reasonable in terms of sound, but there's, like, a fan right above me. There's other types of noise. I'm able to get easily 40 decibels. Sometimes I can get 50 decibels of noise. So that's pretty incredible. Now, one thing I have not tested out is the active mics like the Rode VideoMic NTG. I don't have one of those in studio to test. But that would be something interesting. Like I'd be really curious if I wonder if that could get me closer to 30 dB. I think that you would have a better chance of getting closer to 30 dB of signal to noise with a Rode NTG, which is an active shotgun microphone, um, compared to the 20 dB that you can get with one of these microphones. And so I always suggest like, go quantitative. Like these things are not like it's not like a, oh, I listened to it, it sounds better. Like no, there's like a science. Like there are scientists who study this stuff. Follow the science or look at like the end results. So I think so. I don't know, but my prediction would be if I used a video mic NTG. I don't know, but I think that I would be able to get closer to 30 dB. That would be my estimate, because it's an active microphone in the shotgun form, which potentially could help you remove a little bit of noise. However, the sacrifice you have to make in order to get this improved signal to noise is what? Well, the sacrifice that you have to make is that it's huge. It's like probably bigger than this, right? So you're gonna have like on the end of your phone like a giant thing sticking out. And active mics, like what I've noticed is like they are very powerful. They do a great job of collecting that signal, but they're super obvious, right? Like there's no hiding these, and so keep that in mind. Better sound quality almost always requires it to be less conspicuous. But to be fair, like even this one is fairly conspicuous. Like it's fairly obvious that that you have something. So it might still be worth it. Like what's the difference between here? Let me compare these two. Let me just show you the difference between these two. Right. So on one side you've got like a microphone with the windscreen, and on the other side you have this. Yeah, like it's certainly longer in terms of the actual distance. And if I put like a dead cut on this one, like it would be even bigger. So that's a challenge. But really, like there's not that much difference between the two. Like you still see them. It's still obvious. And so that's really the key that I wanted to get across to you. So there are three things. I hope you got them. And like the three mistakes that I made, just in summary. Let's use a green color. What are they? So the first one was to look at the different. Let me just make sure I got this right. Yes. So the first one was to look at the distance. Remember, I talked about the inverse square law. Basically, the name of the game for microphones is how close are you to them. You want it to have great pickup, be really close to it. That's why people who use like, have you ever seen that really tiny microphone? Here, I have like an insane number of microphones that I've purchased in my lifetime. So people have been using this microphone. Like you've seen this one. It's kind of like a toy microphone, right? And they've been using it, and they've been speaking really close to their mouth and using it like an actual microphone. And the sound coming out from this is actually quite decent. Well, why is it so good? Distance. Look at how close they are. They're putting it right up to their mouths, and they're using it like a real microphone. So anything that you use that close is going to be fantastic. You try to do something like, oh, I'm gonna put my microphone like super far away and expect it to pick up. It's not gonna work, right? So distance is the most important thing. Your pickup is gonna be equivalent to the square of the distance. So the closer you are to the mic, the more signal you're gonna get. That's the rule. The second one is looking at different types. So there's lots of different types. There's different types of polar patterns. So ones that pick up like what's straight in front of you. There's ones that go like wide, omnidirectional ones, for example. So you need to know which type, and you also need to know, am I going active or am I going passive? If I go active, I'm going to get like better signal, but I'm going to have to charge the thing, and it's going to be more inconvenient. If I go passive, then I'm not going to get as good signal, but I won't have to charge it, which is more convenient. And then the other is, do I go for a wired connection? If so, is my cable long enough? And or do I go for a wireless solution? If I go for a wireless solution, just make sure that it's running in the right frequency range. Don't use RF. Don't use the yeah. Don't use RF. Don't use Bluetooth. Stick to the 2.4 gigahertz. This is the only one that I've found that actually works reliably. Most of the other ones, you'll get a ton of crackling. And then the last one is just know the signal. Know the signal to noise. And I think like based on what I showed you, and I forgot to mention, like I tried the same thing. Like when I tried this in restaurants, I got the same results. It didn't matter. So signal to noise ratio is your microphone, and it is what your microphone is capable of doing. And so if you get a microphone like compared to your phone, you just plug in any one of these, like the Video Micro, right? You're going to double the sound that you can get in, the signal to noise. So you get double the signal compared to the noise, at least from what I found. And it doesn't matter if you're in a restaurant or you're in a busy space, which is okay. But I would say in most conferences, 20 dB is not enough, right? Like you hear a lot of noise. You will be able to hear it, but you'll have to do a lot of work to isolate that sound. So if you can get closer to 30 dB by getting a headset microphone, or if you can get an active microphone like the NTG, then if you're at a conference, lots of other people, you don't have to worry because you've got room, you've got space to work with. And so that is really what it is. And you want to talk about like there are the two different reasons why we have them. The first one is if you have it, it makes it feel more like you are face to face. And that's what presence is all about. At least when we talk about like phenomenal camera presence, it's all about feeling close to that other person. So the more clear the signal, the more you feel like we're having a face to face conversation. And then the second is the AI systems, which unfortunately, you may like it or not, they control attention. You post that thing onto Facebook. Who decides whether or not any of your friends see it? Unfortunately, it's the AI, and they're not going to be checking. Like we think of AI as this sophisticated, futuristic technology, but I see it as more just a technology that tries to replicate the past. And if previous videos, like with loud bangs or with loud noises, were the ones that got the most attention, then it's going to promote those ones. So generally, the ones with loud noises are more exciting. People want to see it. So that's kind of why it tends to appear at the top. And so you're not just speaking to other people, you're speaking first to the AI. The AI is the one who sees it, and they don't do complicated things like, well, I mean, they could, but it's a lot of computation, right? So you wouldn't want to do that for every post. They rather focus on simple things like, well, what was the sound pressure level? Was it loud? Oh, it was loud. Like those are easy things for computers to measure. How bright was your image? Was it bright? Not bright? Those are easy to measure, especially with video. Like computation becomes very expensive. So processing in the audio is where everything is at. Like you ever notice like YouTube has this incredible algorithm for detecting violations of any types of music, right? But if you copy somebody's images, like I can go and put like all the Avengers, Marvel, Disney, whatever I want, like as images, as long as I don't put the audio. The moment I put the audio, you're done, right? They're able to find out why. It's so much easier to process audio than it is to process video. There's so much less data. It's such an easy thing to process. So people spend so much time focused on the visuals, like I gotta look this way and I gotta have like this kind of imaging. And you do, like having brighter images does make a difference. But I would say that spend at least as much time on your audio. Invest in the time to understand like what's going on. Where am I getting this noise? What is my signal to noise ratio? And don't go and watch all those YouTube videos which just go, oh, look at this mic and look at this mic and which one do you think is better? Like, no, it's objective. It is not subjective. It is objective. Like, look at the actual signal to noise. What do you need for your environment? Is it high noise? Is it low noise? If it's high noise, you need way more signal to noise ratio. And so that means like getting things that are closer or maybe getting active microphones. So I hope that really helps you understand the frameworks and the way that I see it. Um, I used to do sound for Center Street Church, so it's one of the biggest churches. I think they've got over 3,000 members there, and it was there that I kind of learned the importance of these active microphones. Like if you have something that's active, oh my gosh, the pickup is totally different. You know, the quality, like it's next level. And so then when I decided for my own studio, oh, what kind of mic I'm gonna get, I knew I had to get I knew I wanted to get an active microphone. And yeah, it was going to be an investment. It was going to cost more, but that kind of quality is going to make a big difference for your own messages. And this is your teachings and stuff. And so I often see like really phenomenal, inspirational influencers in the space who have such a powerful message to say, but often they're hard to hear. You can't hear them. And they're great speakers and they use their voice and they use expression way better than I do. But when they speak softly, you can't hear them. And so this is where other technology comes in, right? Like understanding that there are tools. So I'm just scratching the surface, right? So there are other tools that you can look at, such as what are you doing about noise? So there are things that can actively reduce noise. There are other tools such as compressors, and I would highly like recommend go and understand what compressors do. Like if a compressor can take the loudest voices and compress them down, you can make everything sound more clear, right? You can make the whole sound pressure level go way, way up. And that's a lot of what I'm doing in this. Like I have a ton of compressors on, multi-band compressors. I have things that are boosting the sound. So when you compare like the sound that comes out of my microphone compared to most people that you would hear, it's very different, right? Like I probably have a sound pressure level that is a very different level compared to most people in this space. And so I'm teaching you some of the tricks of the trade, the things that I've learned over decades in this area. I hope that was helpful for you. And if you did find something that was useful, or if you have any kind of questions, feel free. You can just pop it into the chat, and of course, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Now, before I go though, there's one last thing that I want to cover, and that's like I want to tell you just like why I'm so passionate about technology and why I'm so passionate. Like, why am I talking to you today about audio presence and why that's so important? Because in the end, technology is just how you serve people at scale, right? Like this microphone is just how I serve people at scale. And knowing what you scale helps you stand out in this sea of like other people who are just like you. And so if you want to, like, you really want to care about this, because when we do this wrong, our own offer and what we have to give becomes a commodity. Everybody sees us as just like everybody else. And of course, you want to take this seriously also because every organization that fails for the same reason. They fail to compete. And we're in a competitive landscape these days. And if you don't innovate, it's just a matter of time before others catch up. And of course, if they catch up, it's easy to fall off course and follow the leader. And then you'll be heading towards a vision that's not yours. You'll be heading towards the vision of your competitor. And so when you replace your why with your competitor's why, you're putting yourself in this creative prison of your own making. But you don't have to worry about that because I coach change leaders like you to get out of creative jail by speaking on the 7 fundamental technology first principles. I help you position your offering as high end and high ticket, and I help you find and attract your ideal clients with a camera presence, which includes audio presence, that separates you from everyone else on the market. You can imagine, like, if you did the things that I had mentioned today, would you be separated from everyone else on the market? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't even see other YouTubers talking about this stuff. They just do like, oh, I've got a product. Let me do a demo. They don't talk about the first principles behind like how microphones work and what you need to actually look for. Crazy. And so that's why my plan is end of this month, we'll be launching a new course called the Camera Presence Creator to position your videos for both your ideal prospects and the social media AI that controls attention. And you can learn more about it by scheduling a call with me or one of my phenomenal geniuses at aiparenting.live/meet. So go and check it out, like aiparenting.live/meet. I'd encourage you, like, take a look at it, see if it's something that is of interest to you. Would love to connect with you. I should probably put it here, aiparenting.live/meet. Yes. So check out my site, book a call. Now, before I go, I do want to give you a gift. And so if you go to aiparenting.live, just the main website, you'll find that I have a mailing list. So just scroll to the bottom, it says like put in your mail. And what I've done is I've created a little bit of a chart. A lot of people talk about like, oh, there's all this time on screens, especially for parents. So it's a tool that helps people move from screen time to, like, my philosophy is don't sedate with screens, relate, and then ultimately create. And so as a tool to help parents, students, everyone from moving from sedation to creation, or to sedation to relation, and ultimately to creation, we'll be giving that to you for free as part of just signing up for the email list. And then, of course, I'll be giving you some updates about the course and giving you some more details about what is to come. So that is my time for today. And before I go, before I leave, I just want to say, don't forget that you are a phenomenal creator. And you can build a community when you create to serve others, because we were made to create. And no one else can be you. Only you can be you, right? So when you document what you create the persona that you have online. And so from the bottom of my heart, it's been a blessing, an honor, and a privilege to serve you to a higher degree. We'll see you next time.